This is part 2 to our lesson on verbals. If you remember from before, a verbal is any word that looks like a verb, but it does not act like a verb. Just to remind you, we went over 2 of the 3 types of verbals that we're going to be discussing. We went over infinitives and we went over gerunds. Today, we will go over participles. So a reminder that infinitives are verbs that are unconjugated, meaning they do not have a subject and they've not been put into any tense. And in English, we write that with the word to followed by the verb. These are sometimes easy to confuse with prepositional phrases because to is a preposition. So to know the difference, you really need to understand what a verb is. A verb is an action. So to know the difference between a verbal and a prepositional phrase, you need to look at the words after the preposition to. All right. If the word after is a verb like attend or listen or leave or get or go, then those are verbals. If it is not, if it's a noun, then that would be a prepositional phrase. All right. And gerunds are verbals that are not the main verb, of course, but they also, like infinitives, act as a noun. But different from infinitives, they are verbals that end in ing. Okay, and again, they act like a noun, just like infinitives. It is good to note that infinitives can act as something other than nouns, but it is pretty rare. So, for the most part, you need to understand that infinitives and gerunds mainly act as nouns. Infinitives can also act like an adjective. All right, so let's go on to our third and final verbal, and that is participles. Again, a participle looks like a verb, but it is not the main verb. It is not doing the action of the sentence. It is behaving like an adjective. Participles describe nouns, which means that it's usually going to be near the noun that it's describing. So the noun that it's describing is usually going to be before or after it. Most of the time, it is before. Okay. All right. So, and that's what it says. They're usually located right before a noun. All right, participles are sometimes harder to spot because they can be in either a past or a present tense. So remember, we told you that verbals are unconjugated for the most part, like infinitives are unconjugated. Well, this verbal will look like it's in the past or the present tense, but it's actually a participle because it's not doing the action of a sentence. We use participles often. We use them all the time. And there's a lot of them that are irregular. So, for example, a participle can be in the past, like dropped, ends in ed. That's a past participle. Or it could be in the present, like dropping. Okay. Or it could be broken or breaking. You can see the little bit of a difference there. How are you going to learn these? Well, you need to read more. Honestly, we need to practice this. We need to be reading every single night so that your brain is used to seeing these participles over and over again. So it's something that you don't really even need to memorize. You don't need to think about. You just know it. Okay. All right. So let's look at the examples on the right. We do have different participles. Some of them are present tense ending in ing, and some of them are past tense ending in ed. I dropped my iPhone and took the broken screen to get fixed. Now, this could be tricky because you have dropped, you have took, you have broken, all of which look like verbs. So you need to ask yourself which one is acting like a verb and which one is not. Dropped is acting like a verb. It has the subject I next to it. It's an action of what you are doing. You are dropping. You dropped your iPhone. And took. You also took. So took is an action verb, and it goes with the subject I. The broken screen to get fixed. Now, broken here, you don't say I broken. It's talking about the screen. It's describing the screen. Remember, participles are behaving like adjectives. So it's describing the screen as broken. Okay. It is an adjective, but we call it a participle because of the way it's written. Okay. And because of the fact that it looks like a verb. And break would normally be a verb. All right, let's look at the second one. The missing library book was found under the bed. We have missing, we have was found. Now we have to ask ourselves, okay, which one is the action? and which one is the participle, or are they all actions? Well, if I look at missing right away, I don't see a subject to go with it. And what I see right after it is the word library, which is a noun. So, missing library book. That seems like missing is describing which one. So, it's describing the book. So, I would say that that's not acting like a main verb, that is acting like an adjective. However, because it looks like a verb ending in ing, we call that a participle. Okay. Was found, that is written in the passive voice, which we will talk more about later on this year. But of course, was is a helping verb and found is the main verb. Okay. Let's look at the third one. The baked goods were sold out by the end of the fundraiser. Again, we have baked and we have were sold. And again, we have to look at baked. Baked is not an action because there's no subject here. And if I look right after it, I see the noun goods. It looks like baked is describing the noun goods. Were sold, again in the passive voice, is the helping verb were followed by the action verb sold. So that is actually the main verb of the sentence, and baked is the participle acting as an adjective. All right, you guys, that is it for verbals. We're going to do some more practice with it, but please make sure that your own guided notes are all filled in, and go ahead and finish up those practice questions at the end, but we'll be doing more practice with this later on.